Who are you?
Ooh. Uh, First of all, I'm a human, and I think it's important for people to remember not just people who I influence, but people who are trying to influence others. We live in a society where, and I'm just saying this because this has been on my mind recently, but you're always going to be reminded that you're human the second you forget, right? The second you put yourself in this or put yourself on some kind of pedestal, or you think you're elite, or you think you're special. It's not to say you aren't. It's just, I think what makes special people special is their understanding and realization that they're human and they're capable of massive failure, massive letdown, massive sin, if you want to use that word, right? And I think what'll ultimately empower you to be a great human is understanding how flawed you are. And I think from my perspective, who am I? Number one, I'm human, right? And I'm capable of incredible things. I'm also very capable of just catastrophic failure. And so my hope is that people realize this is someone who, at the end of the day, is very similar to me, very, very flawed, but has been able to utilize his flaws and failures and struggles to make the world a better place and ultimately help men and some amazing women transform.
That was a good answer, man. I appreciate that. Okay.
Awesome.
So I've got a lot of good questions for you today.
Can we pause for a second because I hear that alarm going off?
So that was that was a more esoteric answer than I was expecting, but it was perfect. So I guess I can jump into, what do you do?
Well, I help primarily men transform. And I heard this the other day from a friend of mine, and he was talking about transformation. And years ago, I and a business partner of mine, when we first started, named this company True Transformation. Mm-hmm. And at the time, we were really
When was that?
This was 2012.
Okay.
And at the time, we were just really fed up with all the false information out there. And so people who were looking to transform their bodies were looking for truth. Mm-hmm. And we called it True Transformation. So I'm a transformation coach for men. But true transformation is simply this. Transformation can only happen when you face the truth and when you embrace truth. And truth ultimately starts and ends with, I say God, but some people may say something else, right? Mm-hmm. But really it's how we process who we are, right? And if we want transformation, we have to embrace truth. And that goes for any part of your life. But my mission is to transform men from the inside out, but we use fitness as the tool to do that.
Awesome. So it's 11 years in for True Transformation?
11 years in for True Transformation, I became a personal trainer. I'm no longer a personal trainer, but I started my fitness career as one in 2005.
Okay.
But then we went online with the coaching and consulting and transformation business in 2012. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So when was the moment when you realized that you might be so good with the fitness stuff that you could turn it into wealth?
Oh, man.
Was there a moment, or was it like gradual?
This is an interesting question because I think to this day, I still deal heavily with imposter syndrome, right? To where
We all do, I think.
I don't know if I've had a moment where I said, aha, I've made it. Despite thousands of successful transformations, despite a lot of people gassing me up, if you want to say that, saying, oh, you're the best or whatever. I have a somewhat unhealthy obsession with improvement. Mm-hmm. When did I realize that I could help other people? I think the first realization I had was when I actually laid out advice for someone as a trainer, watch them follow it and get results. And I thought, oh, wow, like I still hadn't figured out everything, right? I still hadn't figured out how to maintain my fitness at a high level.
But they did what you said and they got results.
Exactly. Yeah, they did what I said and I got results. And then there was, I have a couple key clients in my past where they were what I call like my Hall of Fame clients, right? Where I started out and I was getting great results, but then these guys took it to another level, and they were like, we followed everything to a T. We didn't mess up. We followed exactly what you said to do, and the results were incredible, like to the point where I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that was...
Those are your most impressive after photos?
Yeah, some of our best before and afters were like those before and afters just blew my mind. And then obviously how they changed as human beings too. I was like, holy crap. And I think as with anything, there's some faith that has to be put in place, right? Mm-hmm. Faith that what you're saying is going to work because you've done the research, you've done the work, man, based off science, based off, experience, this is going to work. But there's still faith that has to be in place for the process, right? Because you're like, I'm trusting it's going to work,
trust the process.
but I don't know for sure until I see it play out. And I can remember a few key clients that gave me so much affirmation that things were going to work.
That's awesome. Yeah, like when I started doing cardio last year to lose the weight that I lost, I didn't know if it was going to work for a while until it was. Yeah. And then, but that's awesome, dude. So what made you decide, I don't know if this correlates to turning it into a business or not, but what made you decide that fitness was important enough to structure your whole life around? And were you doing that before True Transformation? Because like you very much embody that on social media. It's not just like going to the gym. It's eating right. It's getting your mind right. It's a lot of different things. But like, you are the poster guy for your brand, which is like holistic fitness, or like holistic wellness now. I feel like it represents more than just,
Yeah, more than just biceps.
yeah, for sure. Like that's not all you talk about. It's not all you represent.
Yeah.
So like,
it's interesting because fitness...
You have those, not to interrupt, but you have those old photos where like, you're like, I was not fit here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to turn my life around.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, that this whole journey started way before I was taking pictures. I've actually never said this before, but you made me think about something. Fitness was the first thing in my life that took over the passion I had for baseball. Baseball was such a thing for me. Like it was, listen, I think from the age of 5 till 20 when I stopped playing baseball, I was obsessed with baseball. I mean,
so that's what it was before fitness.
Everything was baseball.
Okay.
And I could never find a passion. I loved a lot of things. I like music. I loved writing. I actually became an author in high school. And
your copy's really good, man.
Thank you. I've always enjoyed writing, but it never took over my energy like fitness did. Mm-hmm. When I started working out in the gym, I started working out before I knew what working out really was, because I was working out for sports, running, push-ups, pull-ups, curls.
A lot of like my athleticism earlier, like I never intentionally worked out. It just came from like sports and stuff.
Yeah.
And then a lot of that stuff fell to the wayside in my 20s, and that's when I started gaining weight.
Similar story for me. Even though I was so into fitness, I still hadn't really figured out how to use it effectively, right? And so what I found is that I got into fitness because of just turmoil in life, a lot of self-esteem issues, a lot of issues at home, and fitness was like a safe place for me, right? Going to the gym was a stress relief. Even as a 14, 15-year-old kid, I found going to the gym made me just feel really good. Mm-hmm. And then over time, I used fitness for different things. I used it for performance for sports. I used it to look better. I used it to improve my confidence. But I always found that fitness was whatever I was going through, it was what I was drawn back to, right? So it was always like an anchor in my life, during turmoil. I'd always be like, oh, how do I get my life right? Because as a young man, we don't know what we don't know. Our brains aren't developed. Everything feels chaotic. You're trying to impress everybody on one hand, you're trying to figure your life out on the other. And fitness for me was always the way to just find stabilization and go, okay, at the very least, I can go to the gym. At the very least, I can try to eat more protein, right? Even though I didn't have it all figured out. There was one person that I can remember.
Made you feel in control.
Yeah, it gave me some aspect of control. Mm-hmm. It gave me some aspect of clarity. But it was just a passion of mine. Like changing my body gave me just so much return, right? Like it just gave me so much purpose. And when I looked around, I realized like, man, a lot of people, like most people actually haven't figured this out, but most people want this, right? Like there really isn't anybody out there going, no, I don't want to be healthy, right?
Right.
Even those who might say you can be healthy at any size or whatever, there's still the word healthy being used, right? Like there's still a want to have health, whatever they define
That's true.
health
I've never
as.
really. That's a
You know
good
what I mean?
point.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, there in some cases there's these different groups trying to define what healthy means, but yet health is still the center of
The
attention.
object.
And not to get too religious, but I'm a religious guy, so I'll say it. But like, I believe you can say the same thing about atheism, right? Where it's like people will say, "Oh, there's no God, there's no." But the only reason we're talking about it is because, in some aspects, some people believe there is something. They may just not believe that it is what we say it is. But there's this whole idea of health, and it's like, okay, well, let's define health. Well, health is still the thing we're talking about. So I realized that people wanted that, and as I achieved it and leveled up and achieved things in that department, I was like, man, it's all I think about.
Yeah.
I think about working out and nutrition, and I'm just reading, and it doesn't feel like work to me. And I'm like,
It's your brain. That's how you're built.
If I could turn this into a career and a passion, then I absolutely want to. So
Awesome. That's a good answer, dude.
thank you, man.
Okay. Yeah.
He's got the hand tattoos, Ryan. I was just telling Ryan I want to get a hand piece maybe.
Yeah, dude. You should do it, dude.
I'm scared. My wife will have to get approval from. I don't go to many things for approval, but that one I
that makes sense.
That'd be your husband.
Funny.
Yeah, have to on that one.
Funnily enough, I actually decided to get these. I have a couple hand tattoos. When I transitioned from like full-time workforce, working I was like doing internal marketing for companies, and then I was working at an agency. But I started an agency while I was working at one, and I got laid off. And then I had the choice of like, do I go back into the full-time workforce or do I just scale my business?
Yeah.
And honestly, my business was just scaling faster than I was finding like work.
Yeah.
So I decided to run with that. And then it was kind of like just let's do
symbolic
that.
thing?
Yeah, symbolic thing. Like I can
Funny,
do
you're
this
ballsier
now.
than I've been because I kept the wrist
purposely very
clean.
ballsy with it,
I was like, I'm not showing nothing in case I have to put a collared shirt back on or something.
I mean, that's very smart.
It's smart, but it's also you're giving it's like it's not really in line with the burn the boats analogy.
Right.
You know
I
what
definitely
mean?
was burning the boats.
You're leaving yourself an out. You're like, but if it's like, well, your brain's thinking, well, I could always go back. So you're not really all in.
That's true. That's true. I have a small neck one too, but I'll never do the face. I don't think I'll.
Yeah, I can't do the face, man.
It's too crazy.
Can't do it.
I'm not a rapper anymore. Let's see. What does your fitness regimen look like on a daily basis right now?
So I'll give you my most up-to-date regimen because I'm changing a couple things. I got really consistent over the past years with doing something in the morning. Typically, I call it the morning movement. Get up, go for a walk on a treadmill, outside, whatever.
Yeah, no, I was following that too. It's getting harder because it's cold.
Yeah, it's hard, right, with the cold weather. I'm lucky I have a treadmill, so I have no excuse. But morning movement was always a cornerstone. So now what I'm doing is I'm waking up, I'm drinking water, I'm trying to avoid caffeine for the first hour or two of the day.
Why is that?
Because caffeine first thing in the morning really messes with your cortisol. So I'm trying to bring my cortisol down in the morning, when I wake up, and be able to then ingest caffeine at the right time so it actually gives me more return, right? So I don't know if you ever, and we're getting off on a tangent, but I'll just say, if you
I'd
experiment
love to
with
talk
this,
about caffeine.
yeah, caffeine is an interesting.
I wrestle with it.
It's a performance enhancer if used properly. It can also be a performance decreaser. But I've noticed that if I take in caffeine right first thing in the morning, my energy actually really comes down quickly, right? Initially, there's a little bit of a pick me up, but then it's like, ooh, like it almost hits you like you need to take a nap, right? It's like your cortisol gets kind of messed up, and your natural biorhythm and just circadian rhythm just isn't properly aligned. So what I do now is I'll get up, I have water in the morning, that's all I have, and then I'll go downstairs, light a candle, read my Bible, pray, sometimes it's 5 minutes, put on some worship music, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes. I'll text a friend who I'm accountable to with this because it's important to have accountability even for me. Yeah. I'm working on getting up earlier so I can do more in the wee hours of the morning before I have responsibilities and chaos and everything. But then what I'm immediately rolling into is my caffeine after that, right? So I've been up at this point. So
But you do your morning movement before the caffeine?
So no, I'm
you're
actually
just up for a little bit.
So I used to, yeah. So I used to do my morning movement before the caffeine, but now what I do is I do my morning, I call it meditation, worship, wake and worship, whatever you want to call it. Go right into my workout with caffeine. So I do all that, then I ingest a pre-workout, do my lifting, which will include a warm-up of walking, and I lift right now about 4 days a week.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do some touch-up stuff, right? Like I'll do, a little bit of, bonus arms or shoulders or whatever. But typically I have a consistent 4 days a week lifting schedule.
Okay.
After my lift, that's when I'll do my movement.
Okay.
So I like to finish with movement because it just feels better, right? I like a walk just wakes me up like fully, and then I'll go into my day. So on the days I don't lift, I'll still do all of that, but I'll just do more movement, right?
Okay.
So I'll do, instead of like a 15-minute walk to finish my workout, I'll do like a full 30. Like today, I didn't lift today, so I got up, did my ritual, and then I got into my walking. And that's my routine now that I'm really trying to work on. I'm not like fully like everything's perfect yet. I'm gonna kind of mess around with variables, but that's my fitness routine. And then there's stuff throughout the day that I might do, another walk or whatever nutrition stuff. But that's how I structure the morning.
Gotcha. That's good. Okay. I'm bouncing around here a little bit.
No, it's good. I
but,
love these questions, man. These are great.
What is your fitness? So we talked a little bit about this. Actually, I'm going to bounce back, and then we're going to go back to your specifics.
Sure.
Because we were talking about coaching. I want to talk more about the business and true transformation. So what was like your path to scale, and when did you realize like you needed the internet?
I know I realized, let's start with the internet. So I knew I needed the internet because the internet was a big part of my life for years before I went online with my fitness business. What I was doing was I was actually playing poker online. That was a big part of my early entry into online money, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And
so
then I found,
were you good at it?
I was good enough to make enough to pay a few bills and make a little side money or whatever.
Okay.
I was pretty good. I mean, I was winning all the house games I played in, stuff like that. But online is a treacherous
world.
Treacherous world, yeah. So I was good, but was I elite? No, I wasn't elite. But nonetheless, I found my first fitness mentor online.
Okay.
And I got deep into really bodybuilding for a while, right? Where I met a guy, I didn't meet him, but I found a guy named Greg Plitt. He was, at the time, the industry's #1 fitness model. I mean, he was on everything, every product, every magazine. He was just the guy. But he had a membership site where you could pay, I think it was $9.97 a month, like $9.97. And you could basically get coaching.
$9.97.
Yeah, well now
the coaching programs nowadays.
With inflation now,
yeah,
now it's at least $1,000 a month if you go with a good coach. But anyway, so it's like $10. I didn't have a lot of money, so $10 to me was like an important investment. I wasn't going to waste it. So I watched every single video, and there was hundreds of these videos, but they were all like mindset videos, right? So obviously, it set aside the coaching aspect that was like helping me. But I realized, oh my gosh, like this is how you create an online business. Like you put all
because it was
things.
like working on you, and you were like, wait,
it was working on me.
This is how you do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Reading all his workouts, reading all his nutrition plans, watching all his videos, I was like, oh, this is something I want to create. Once I figured my life out, this is what I want to do. I was doing the math in my head, like, dude, I bet he's got like 10,000 members, like whatever.
10,000 members times $10.
And back then, I mean, he probably did because it was like, it was such a new concept. There was like
people were like super down to
super down.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed the internet.
Probably had a great marketing team.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he was. I mean, I don't really. I have to go back. I wish I could go back in time and watch his stuff again, but I can remember him being one of the only guys that was really capitalizing on
the internet.
The internet. Yeah, like because he was a model and he was featured on. I think he gained some notoriety through a show on, I think it was Entertainment Network, but it was basically a show about like personal trainers. It was a reality TV show. And it was like these guys out in Hollywood training at this gym, and like the celebrities interacting with, the interrelationships amongst the team, super toxic crap. Like Greg was on the show and he was like, thinking back, he was like not the greatest role model, but he was like, sleeping with some girl and then talking to some other chick. And it was just like, oh, so toxic.
Yeah.
But
just like bad TV.
yeah, but like I didn't really like, you didn't, as a kid, you're just like, whatever, I just want like what
You're not really
has.
taking all that. Yeah, you're not taking too much of that stuff to heart.
Exactly. You don't know what you don't know.
Hope.
Yeah. So that's when I realized the internet is my path to create wealth, right, for myself. Didn't know what the heck I was going to do, but that.
So you realized that. Oh, you realized that before you had a.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely
Okay.
tried to play the steal like an artist game, right, where I said, okay, because membership sites started to become all the rage back then, where it was like, yo, what's your membership site? If you have a business, it's just a membership site.
sure.
And so I started a membership site early on, and it bombed. I mean, it was like, I knew nothing about anything.
Yeah, they're not hard. They're
hard.
not easy. They're very difficult.
Getting someone to commit to a one-time
and then provide
thing.
them enough value that they stay.
Yeah.
not
Even low-cost memberships are somewhat challenging. Look at you don't have to go any further than gyms. Gyms have a really hard time keeping
Retention.
members because first of all they don't use the gym, and then they do use the gym and they are reminded about like how often they're not using it every time they go, and it just becomes an expense. They're like, yeah, we don't need that. It's not an investment. It's like it's just another cell phone bill. It's like, no, I don't need that.
Right, like when they're
So-
going through their bill and they're trying to cut, they're like, the gym is a something they're willing to cut.
Exactly, man.
I actually had a talk. Talking with my friend. I mean, I need to get a gym membership now that it's getting cold, like super cold again, because like running was my all and it's getting tough to do.
Sure.
I should have a gym membership anyway, but
You can. I mean, I know it's like whatever, but like Planet Fitness gets a bad rap, but it's a great gym membership. I think it's so inexpensive.
It's very inexpensive,
But it's
yeah.
got like, I mean, some of the newer ones I've been seeing online are like really nice, dude.
Yeah?
Like they have. Oh yeah, I don't love the purple color, but like.
yeah. Not a
But
big
still,
fan.
I mean,
Right.
if I was looking for like, if we had a Planet Fitness right here, I'd probably get a membership because it's like $10 a month or $20 a month or something.
And like, what would you
crazy.
go there to do that you can't do in your home gym?
It's more about getting a new environment.
I see. I feel
So like I go to the shop gym, which is in Manassas.
like
and,
being in a new place kind of motivates
yeah,
me.
I work out at my gym at home a few days a week, and then I'll go to the shop one or 2 days a week.
Okay.
Now we go there to film a lot, but
Oh, that's where you guys film.
yeah. So, but it's an environment. It's like, okay, I need to like get some different energy. I need better music, or I just need like different equipment.
People around you. Maybe
Yeah, sometimes a little
novelty.
novelty. I might be doing the same exact movement that I do at home, but a squat in my home basement is a little different than a squat when there's like jack dudes everywhere next to you. You know what I mean?
yeah, no,
You're
I
just
feel you,
like,
for
sometimes
sure.
I need that
Absolutely.
little boost,
Definitely. Like running on the treadmill is a little bit different than running on outside on a path. Like running on the WNOD on a summer day when everybody's going at it. Like
Crazy.
It's like you got a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
I got a lot of juice in my veins.
I have because I like to run too when it's
Yeah.
warmer, and I can think of all my favorite routes,
Yeah.
like in different places around the world, and then compare that to
Around
a
the
treadmill.
world.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've run some awesome spots,
That's sick.
but then you go, ooh, the treadmill, nah. It's hard.
Sometimes I like it, but
Yeah.
I prefer some.
I like
I prefer
the
a sunny
trails.
day. Yeah.
Trails are nice.
I love trails too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that you talk about a lot. I got a bunch of stuff. Identity design. Because it's something that I think is like really important.
Sure.
So from my perspective, like I was athletic at one point in my life, so I knew what it was to identify as fit and athletic. And when I lost it, like over the course of a couple of years, and it really hit me last year, looking in the mirror and just not being very happy with what I saw, I had a frame of reference for the past, if that makes sense, and like knowing what it was like to be fit, knowing what it was like to feel lighter and more nimble. But some people don't have that. Some people have been overweight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also like there's other examples. For example, like I had a lot of imposter syndrome when I really shifted from like seeing myself as an artist to seeing myself as a marketer and really trying to take marketing super seriously because that's what I've been doing for 2 or 3 years. And it's like you see yourself as one thing for so long to really step into the shoes and fully embody something else. That's like kind of how I see identity design, and I had to do that in my head, like who am I going to be? Who do I want to be? How am I going to get there?
Sure.
But it's like, I guess, how do you help people who were like can't even conceive being fit, kind of like get there in their head before?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
Absolutely. There's, I experienced this too because, you know, I despite being an athlete, I never had a physique that I was like proud of. Okay. So I grew up with, I call it average genetics, you know, was never overweight, but I was never ripped. I never had abs until I was in my mid-20s. Never thought I could even achieve them, let alone keep them, right? So wrapping my head around the concept of reaching some level that you've never ever been before or identified with before is only going to happen first and foremost when you do a couple things. Number one, you really have to get clear on who you want to be, right? So like, you know, for me, it's not just about like, ooh, I want to be fit, you know, it's about, man, I want to be a godly dude who takes care of himself, who is able to show up in a lot of different areas and be someone worthy of respect. And that's not just about looking a certain way, right? Because there's plenty of people out there who look great.
You know,
Come on,
something
Craig.
you said once that really resonated with me, kind of in line with what you're saying now, is like, you know, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your kids. Something along those lines in your content. Like, you know, dads say, I'm too busy with my kids to go to the gym.
Sure.
Or something like, you know,
Sure.
and then they're like, it's like,
Yeah.
well,
I think we also, so that's a great point.
maybe it was a little off track, but
No,
it
no.
reminded me of
That's a very true statement. You know, there are people you affect that ultimately your actions will influence in a good or bad way. But I think the other thing that people can do that is not necessarily easy, but they can start to wrap their head around it quickly is you can borrow the trust from other people's results. So you can look at other people and say, okay, that guy is someone I relate to, and look at the transformation he made.
Yeah.
Where he was starting in a similar spot or even worse spot or whatever, and he ultimately got there. So ultimately, I am believing now that I am capable of becoming that because I see all these other people who have done it. It's why I post before and afters. Yes, it's a marketing hack, you know, to get people to go, yeah, I want that, right? But it's also a reminder that you can do it, right? Like, hey, you're capable. Your identity is
the before and afters
malleable.
are great in so many ways.
Yeah.
They do a lot of different things.
They do a lot of different things for sure. Identity design is, first of all, thinking about who do I truly want to be? Who do I need to become or how do I need to change to reach that, right? Like how do I need to operate? You know, like right now I'm thinking about how do I follow the path that I'm supposed to follow? How do I step into, you know, more responsibility, more I guess you could call it power, but it's not so much power, it's more of just impact, right? Like how do I create bigger impact? And the question is, well, if I want bigger impact and I want to be doing all these things, who must I become and what do I need to put my faith and trust in order to get there, right? But ultimately too, like what do I want my kids to see? What do I want my spouse, my wife to see? What do I want my peers to see when they see me? You know, how do I want to be remembered and recognized? You know, and I think too, understanding that from a very basic level, our bodies, no matter where you are, no matter what genetics you have, I saw a guy the other day on stage with no arms and no legs, making a massive impact. I mean, he's got millions of followers. He's a positive guy. His energy, I mean, despite being just, you know, a tiny human, he has got massive reach, right? His energy is huge. And he's, you know, he's got no arms and no legs, right? But he takes as good a care of himself as he possibly can. I think at the end of the day, we all have to kind of come to grips with the fact that our bodies are a gift, right? They are a tool. You can't go get another one, and everything we experience in life is through this vessel, right? Everything. There's nothing, like if I'm sitting here right now with you and I'm dealing with aches and pains, or I'm overweight and I'm like, man, is uncomfortable sitting here. My hips are hurting. My brain is foggy. My energy's low. I can't even put together a sentence. Or I'm sitting here overweight, out of shape, inflamed, and you're looking at me like, man, you just don't look healthy, right?
Yeah.
There's a messaging that you're conveying, most importantly to yourself, right? What are you telling yourself? And then how am I showing up in the world, right? Because
Yeah.
I've been given, man, I was born.
You're showing up in the world how you're showing up for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's miraculous that we even made it, right? Like we're here,
Yeah.
we're a 1 in a billion, chance of being here, whatever, right? Because we just are, who we are, right? It's a miracle, and we're given this body. Like, dude, at the end of the day, I think it's a necessity and a responsibility to take care of your body, right?
Yeah.
It's not a punishment. It's not I don't want to work out. It's like, dude, it's a privilege.
I mean,
It's
I
a
was getting
privilege.
genuinely scared when I was like ramping up, because like the little time it happened, it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. It's just like I all of a sudden look
Yeah.
up and I'm like, damn, if it keeps going like this, I am going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you'll be living your life experiences through a vessel that isn't
Yeah.
properly taken care of. And then anyone who's lived in any kind of sketchy area or house, I know I've lived in some sketchy spots,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's a level of anxiety that you start to learn to live with. And until that anxiety is
Absolutely.
gone, you don't realize how much of an impact it had on you. And it's like with your health and fitness, I think some people are literally in a spot where they don't even know how they feel anymore. They're just like, I'm just used to this. Like, I'm just used to
That's absolutely true.
feeling unhealthy all the time. And
Yeah.
I've gotten, listen, we're really strong creatures. Like humans are adaptable, man. And you learn to live with pain.
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
learn to live with
and discomfort.
and discomfort, and
it's like,
anxiety.
as long as you're like getting money or getting your job done, people like say
Yeah,
it's okay.
people will fight like crazy to stay in their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And comfort zones change. It's here, and
Yeah.
then the needle moves, and you're like, okay, now it's here, and you fight like crazy to stay there. But everything you want is outside of that comfort zone,
Absolutely.
right? So the health and fitness identity design starts with realizing all of that and going, okay, who do I need to become? Who can I start to become right now? Who can I start to pretend to be, for lack of a better term?
Yeah.
Right? In order to start to almost brainwash myself into getting the result I want. And who can I look to for proof that the process does work?
Works. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a solid 3 steps, man. I like that. If you were advising somebody who wanted to like do what you've done, like a new coach, like somebody who wanted to maybe turn their fitness expertise into wealth,
Yeah.
what would be like your best marketing advice for them?
Well, first thing I would say is there's so much. It's like fitness. There's so much marketing advice out there. Like do this, don't do this. I think first of all, understand that you can use your unique experiences to create your own niche, right? Who you truly are, your authentic self, your fears, your worries, your struggles, all of that creates this unique approach to maybe a similar problem that other people are solving. I would say,
That's a very good way to put it.
yeah, from the jump, from the start of whatever you're trying to do, have a give first and really give always mentality. No one ever failed because they gave too much, right? Oh, I gave away too many secrets. There's
Hermosi.
really no secrets,
Yeah.
This was a lesson that I had somehow downloaded somewhere and I used from the beginning, but I didn't know I was doing it. I just realized later on that this is
Yeah, because
my
like
approach.
Alex Hermosi is really heavy on that message as of recently.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid to give away your best shit for free because people will pay for the implementation.
Well, people will pay, implementation for sure. People will pay also to be closer to you, right? So they'll say,
Coaching,
yeah,
accountability.
They go, well, man, I used what you said to do. I got results, but I'm just not all in because I haven't invested yet,
Yeah, sometimes paying the money is what like actually makes them do the work.
I would argue that it's pretty much all the time. That's what it is. You know?
Yeah, I've been seeing that. Like, I feel like a lot of sales trainers are very heavy on that right now. That kind of tactic. It's like, well, the reason why you're not like sold on the solution is because you haven't invested in it.
Yeah, and I'd say too that there's patterns to people. So if parts of your life are not where you want them to be, your decision-making process is probably the same in all those areas, right? So like if you're struggling with your fitness and you're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out looking for cheap options, looking for somebody who doesn't take a lot of commitment or, a heavy investment or a scary investment or whatever, I bet you all parts of your life where you're not where you want to be,
satisfied with,
it's probably very similar in terms of how you handle it.
I gotcha.
But if I was just starting out, I'd say, number one, get crystal clear on who you serve. Like I'm not trying to be a one-stop
you're super crystal
shop.
clear on that.
Yeah, I really help men transform. That's what I do, right? From the inside out, but ultimately, do I help women? Yeah, we have women clients, but I'm not creating all my content for women.
And you go even farther than that. You help high-value, busy men. Typically, like that's kind of like your target because it's like, first of all, they have the money for the services. Second of all, they have a need due to their lifestyle that has created that money that they have for your services.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a very specific problem, I feel like, that you can hone in and solve for certain people.
Big time. I think a lot of the guys most of the guys I work with, are similar to me in the sense that they have big goals. They want to achieve a lot with their life. They feel responsible for people in their life. They feel responsible for themselves. They feel like they've been given a lot of opportunity.
They're like generally motivated.
Motivated.
In a certain area, and they've kind of let that fall to the wayside.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these before and afters, like you get them, you make them get the job done.
They're motivated in their careers for sure. They're motivated to be, in most cases, a strong family man, but their motivation with their fitness just is lacking because they don't know how to fill up that cup while filling up these other cups.
Right, they're so busy in their mind and with their life.
And to be fair,
it's not easy to add fitness on your plate.
It's not, but the reason why it's typically a struggle for these guys is because they're a very all in or all out type of guy, right? So they're like, and so definition of all in with fitness is not what really needs to happen, right? So they think, I got to eat a certain bodybuilder type of diet. I have to train every day. I have to cut out all my social life.
They're like, it has to become this big thing.
Yeah, they have to go all in because they're not a half-ass type of person, right?
But like it can be gradual. Like you can. I've seen.
Well, not even gradual. I think you can change the definition of what all in actually means. So like you tell a guy, hey, look, I can get you in great shape training twice a week. They're like, what? Yeah, that could be your all in. Like all in could be twice a week. It could be a Saturday workout and a Tuesday workout. It could be a Wednesday and a Sunday, whatever. You can eat.
But you have to like reframe their brains and say you can get results with that.
You have to change the definition of what all in, fully committed actually means, right? And then once they have clarity and go, oh, okay, so I don't have to do all these things. These are the only things I have to do. Then they are like, oh, now I'll go all in, right? And they follow those principles, get great results. And then what ends up happening, which is really the most interesting thing, is all of a sudden they have more time, right? All of a sudden they're like,
all of a sudden they have more time for fitness.
Right. So they're like, oh, I went all in on 2 workouts a week.
And I've seen results. It's like, let's turn it up to 3 or 4.
I have hundreds of emails. Like, dude, I'm done with phase 1, training twice, 3 times a week or whatever.
Crank it up.
I think I can crank it up to 5. You're like, yeah, I bet you can, right? Well, because all of a sudden they realize
the importance, maybe.
Right. The ROI on that is so big. So they're like, crazy. I want more of that. You know? And what was I thinking all along? Not protecting time.
Like you start to see results and you're like, damn, how can I like you get from you're trying to get here and you're here. Yeah. You get here and you're like, damn, how can I close this gap faster? They want to close the gap faster and faster once they start seeing results.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, man. Yep.
Two more. Okay.
How
do you vet your coaches? Because you hire coaches, right? You're a coach that coaches how to coach.
Let's see. This is a good question.
Like, how do you know
Yeah.
that's like I can entrust this person with like.
One of the biggest reasons I know is because I've hired a lot of bad ones.
I was just gonna say one of my other questions that I kind of
Yeah.
cut was like, how do you know a bad coach?
Yeah. So
Maybe that's a better question. Maybe it's easier.
over
to
the
tell.
years, my
Red flags.
Yeah, exactly. Over the years, my criteria for what I'm looking for in a coach has changed. Initially it was, how can I take a successful client who's now passionate about helping others and turn them into a great coach?
Interesting.
And that's
I would imagine that's troublesome because they already have like jobs.
it's troublesome in the sense, and it does work in some aspects. We have a couple that, if they watch this, you guys do a great job. But the ones prior, it's not to say you didn't do a great job. It's just it may not have been the right time for you here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
you think
I
you never tried to force someone into coaching when they weren't ready,
no, never have done that. But I've
or thought someone was ready before they really were?
well, yes, I think
Okay.
that was probably more of the problem. And I also think some people come in with an agenda to learn how to be a coach so they can then go off.
Yeah. They're
and
like, let
be
me
a business owner, right? And what you don't understand is those are two completely separate skills.
Yeah.
I know great business owners.
I'm learning that
I'm talking
now.
genius level business owners who are literally the worst coaches on earth. They
Yeah.
couldn't teach
Wait,
you.
the people who have coaching businesses?
No, just guys who want to make a lot of money.
Oh, you're saying like like people who are great businessmen who
Yeah.
would be terrible coaches.
It's
just in
why
general.
I kind of laugh these days. I don't laugh. It's some guys are great, but you got guys who made a lot of money being great coaches, who then decide to pivot and teach people how to be a great business owner. And I say those are two completely separate skill sets.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you don't have the skill to be a good business owner, but it's always interesting to me to say.
It's funny how people make that pivot. I see it in a lot of different spaces. It's happening a lot in the agency space.
Big
too.
time. So the best business coaches I have are, in some aspects they're great coaches, but they're really just skilled with the things in business that you need to be aware of, right? They just know how to move pieces around, and their coaching is very raw, sometimes very like, whoa, like what? Some of the best coaches I have don't make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Because they just aren't trying to scale their business. They don't know what they don't know, but they're so good.
They're great coaches.
At coaches, right. So
they have like the clients that they have and they're really good with them, but they don't really know how to like.
Exactly. They're powerful. And you're like, man, if you could get this out to the
How
masses.
could you macro it? Yeah.
So anyway, going back to your question, how do I determine who's a good coach or how do I avoid bad coaches? Well, right now we don't need any more coaches, right? Thankfully, in this stage of our business, we have what I call our A squad, right? We have the right people in the right seats. What I look for first and foremost is truly a hunger to serve. Okay. If someone comes in and is like, well, how much am I going to make? Or how much money is there possibly to make? Or whatever, start asking financial questions. Listen.
They need to be worried about the right things.
Pretend like there's no money in it, right? Pretend like you're doing this so you can wake up every day and have satisfaction that you're changing people's lives.
Yeah.
If that's not there,
then like we shouldn't even be talking about.
you also need to walk the walk, right? So I made the mistake of hiring people that really hadn't fully, I want to say transformed, but hadn't really fully bought into all the lifestyle principles. Doing some things right, but still struggling. Not to say we don't all have our own struggles.
Yeah.
But you need to be a walking billboard for the program.
Right, like you're the poster boy for your brand.
You
You
wouldn't-
have to be what people want to become.
Right. What I want to learn how to. It's an interesting topic actually, but like what I want to learn public speaking from someone who constantly fails on stage.
Right.
Maybe you'd learn some things. Like you'd be like, okay, don't do that, or like
You
whatever.
learn what not to do.
But you really, truthfully, trust is really built faster when you can see that person has achieved what you want and has stayed in that spot for a while.
That's the power of a brand.
Yeah.
Too.
Coaches, great coaches are great listeners. They are empathetic. They have prior struggles. I do look for that, right? Prior pain that they've worked
They've
through.
overcome. That's
Yep.
something that another entrepreneur that I talk to looks for too.
Yeah, I look
who
for people who are team focused, right? So they don't have an ego. Everybody has an ego, but they don't have an ego that is overpowering.
You look for people who you try to avoid people who like to play by themselves.
Yeah. I like to look for people who are a team first mentality, who also